Yes. Yes. It's freaking happening. Once again.
This is all over the region.
Here we go. Bombotron time. Oh. No, we're not going to go to war, you guys. We're just going to make these decisions to bomb things. Let's see if anybody pops in here and that we have the audio going correctly. Let me make sure we're all set. Make sure I can hear it. Yes, okay, it is good. What's up, everybody? Let's get this thing going. So, it's Sean Daniel here. Anybody who's in the chat decides to pop on, thank you so much. Surprise, surprise. Surprise, surprise. Stuff comes back. Yes, Sean Daniel, I am back. Back in the USA, baby. Finally, after 10 months. So I'm on your guys' time zone. And I can make some of these live streams. Haven't made some videos in a while. Surprise, surprise, surprise. We have a retaliation from Iran. But everybody, thank you, Cactus. Welcome back. Appreciate it. Have not been able to make some videos in a while. Surprise, surprise. We have Iran retaliating. What does that say? Iran launches retaliatory strikes against U.S. forces. Oh, but we're not going to war, right? We're not going to war. You know, we're just going to take out their nuclear program. Let's get into the breaking news. I can't believe it. I can believe it, but I can't believe it. Listen.
From Iran in what it's describing as a joint operation between the Iranian army and the
Let's go back.
Practically destroyed, no casualties.
Potentially. It looks like so far Qatar has been able to intercept a lot of those missiles, but you never know. Even in the Iron Dome, sometimes they miss missiles. What's happening right now on the base, do you think?
So they have attacked in Qatar. Before we see the whole breakdown, let's see exactly what's going on. So, Qatari air defenses intercepted. Why is this not? Here we go. Iran retaliates. What does this say? Iran retaliates. Let's zoom it in. Air defense systems in Qatar are currently intercepting Iranian ballistic missiles. Trump is reportedly now back in the Situation Room with Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth and the Joint Chiefs. All right. Before we hear from the liberal media, let's actually see what's going on Twitter. Qatari air defenses intercepted 9 out of 10 Iranian missiles launched at the U.S. Al Udeid, good luck on trying to pronounce that one, airbase, with one missile falling in an open area of the base. Check out these remains.
هاي قطعة في البيت صاروخ تو طايح. حلو
Wow.
طيحناه هني طبعا عرفت علي أول ما دش
Remains of a patriotic interceptor that hit an Iranian ballistic missile over Qatar tonight. So they have all these interceptors to block, just like they do with the dome in Israel. Same thing over the U.S. air bases, over these U.S. military bases. Look at them all. Look at them all. So we have some ROM Diesel says this was the greatest threat to humanity for the past 50 years. What, Iran having missiles and having the nuclear weapon? Obviously that's a threat. But this preface, I'm going to explain stuff in a second. Let's go. What's the details? What's going on?
We're hearing that things are quite calm in Doha right now. This base is outside of Doha, but people are back on the streets. This was a relatively short barrage, and according to the Ministry of Defense in Doha, it was successfully destroyed. No casualties, no indication at this point that it is an ongoing event. So, as Barry McCaffrey was saying, General Barry McCaffrey, perhaps this is over over for the time being. Perhaps this was Iran's response, firing at a very hard target that would be difficult to penetrate. And the U.S. appears to have had some advance warning. Tom, just yesterday we were talking on Nightly News about how U.S. officials, two of them, telling NBC News that they were particularly concerned about this first 48-hour window after the Americans attacked those two sites. Earlier in the day, an order went out for all Americans and British nationals in Qatar to shelter into place. Shortly before the missiles started flying, the airspace of Qatar was closed. So there were precautions. It seems that they may have seen this coming, had some intelligence indicating that this was on its way. And then, according to Iran, at least 6 missiles sent from Iran in what it's describing as a joint operation between the Iranian army and the Revolutionary Guard. They're describing it as a powerful and devastating attack. Qatar saying just the opposite, that everything was shot down.
Okay, Richard, stand by for us. We're going to go back to Kier, who again is reporting from Erbil, Iraq. Just in the distance there, in those blinking lights, the Al Udeid base is behind him. Kier, I know you have some new reporting out of Bahrain. What are you hearing?
Bahrain, for those of you guys who don't know, Bahrain is right next to Qatar, okay? Let's pull this bad boy up. Here's Qatar. Let's get some context. Saudi Arabia. Okay. Right in the middle. We got Iran. We got Israel way over here. Far away from Iran. Remember, they're farther away. So if Iran wants to send missiles to Israel like they've been doing, there's a lot more time to intercept. Iran is right over the Persian Gulf from Qatar. Bahrain is this small little country over to the left.
Hey, Tom, so this is a separate base from Al Udeid behind me there. This is the Erbil base, is still, though, a U.S. base, probably the closest base to Iran. So we are watching closely, as you can imagine, to see if any munitions land here. But let me just give you a little bit of news. I've heard from another senior Gulf diplomat who has told me, and this was communication just a few minutes ago, who's told me that there have been no strikes in Bahrain at this stage. Bahrain has not seen anything hit so far. Meanwhile, we are hearing from Iran's National Security Council. It has put out a statement about the attack on Qatar. We were talking earlier, Tom, about how Qatar has been trying to mediate with the Iranians, that they are perhaps closer to the Iranians than some other Gulf countries. The Iran's National Security Council saying our attack on Al Udeid Air Base in Qatar does not threaten the sisterly state of Qatar. And then Iran's Revolutionary Guard putting out a statement saying our response sent a clear message to the White House. So the Iranians trying to say that they have targeted a U.S. base in Qatar, not Qatar the country, and that there's a message for the White House. I'm not sure the Qataris will see the distinction necessarily reading their statement that they just released, Tom.
Yeah.
So how logical is that one? How logical is that, everybody? That Iran, however you guys pronounce it, they are trying to bomb U.S. military base in Qatar, which, as we could see from the chat and from Twitter, I checked earlier, Jennifer says in the chat, no casualties per the Ministry of Qatar. All missiles were intercepted by interceptor battery. On Twitter, it said one was intercepted. Question for you guys in the chat. Thank you for watching, by the way. How logical is that statement of Iran to say, well, we're not attacking you, Qatar. There's no danger in Qatar. Just the U.S. military bases, which sends a message to the White House. Does that make sense? Put yes or no in the chat, please, before we hear more from the updates. Because then I have a next question. Yes or no? Does that make sense from Iran? You know a but is coming. Does that make sense? Oh, we're not attacking. There's no danger in Qatar. None whatsoever. Just only at the U.S. military bases. Deborah says no. Cindy says no. Then how logical is that is a relatively similar statement by the White House that, oh, we're not going to war with Iran. We're not attacking Iran. We're just wiping out their nuclear program. Okay, you could say that the bases are way out in the mountains, so it's not near civilians. You think Iran and the Iranian people are not going to take it like you're attacking Iran Like, oh, we're just wiping out their nuclear program. That's the same thing as attacking a military base in a country, in Qatar, and be like, yeah, don't worry, we're not going after Qatar. We're just bombing an area in Qatar, which is a U.S. military base. How does that make any sense? And this is what I was saying in a little video I made, which a lot of you guys got all pissed off at, which, it's fine. That, exactly, no, it does not make sense. This attack was not meant to escalate the war. Obviously, what is Iran supposed to do? Are they supposed to just lay down? I'm not saying they're a great country. I'm not saying that they should be defended and they should build up some nuclear program. But this idea that people are saying online and influencers are saying, and even the White House, oh, this wasn't a war. This wasn't an escalation of war. This is just to wipe out the nuclear program. No war. No, we're going to bomb you. Now you guys need to stay peaceful and come back and talk. What do you expect Iran to do? I expect them to retaliate, which is going to give problems at these bases, which that's a part of international issues and having these evil countries like Iran. But this whole premise, oh, we're not going to war. What do you expect Iran to do?
Yeah, no, I hear you there, Keir. I do want to bring in Jeremy Bash. Now, Jeremy, I'm sure you heard Keir's reporting there. How do you interpret sort of the statements coming out of Iran tonight? And what do you think President Trump does next?
Well, Iran has a domestic audience. They want to show their own people that they're responding to Operation Midnight Hammer, which was the Trump administration's attack on 3 nuclear sites over the weekend. I think if no U.S. forces are injured and we intercepted all of the incoming missiles, either at Qatar or in other locations, then I think President Trump has a kind of a tough decision on his hands. He can kind of step back and say, look, we don't want to have a back and forth. We want to get to the negotiating table. You didn't hurt any of our people. Let's talk. Or he could use military force to go after other targets, other ballistic missile targets inside Iran. He could even go a step farther and target regime targets, target the supreme leader, target defense leaders. He could kind of not waste the crisis and say, hey, you attacked us. I told you not to. You crossed the red line. We're going hard into your country. So I think the president and his team are obviously calibrating this at this hour. A lot is going to depend on what the battle damage assessment is with respect to how much damage these incoming rocket, artillery, and mortar pieces did at U.S. bases, not just at Al Udeid, but potentially in Iraq, potentially in Bahrain, potentially in Kuwait, and potentially in the UAE. We've got forces all over the region. And just because Iran fired here tonight and they said, you know, this was successful, doesn't mean we can relax. Our force posture is going to be very aggressive. We're going to watch this, and probably there are going to be private messages sent between us and Iran through European powers, through other powers, to basically say, knock it off. If you do this again and you hurt any of our people, this is what the U.S. would say to Iran, we're going to go after you hard.
40,000 U.S. troops in the region there. Jeremy, I do also want to remind our viewers that
Wow.
NBC News had
Look at
reported
that.
that Iran had threatened.
Look at that map. 40,000 troops across the region. Now all of these guys are in danger. Now, we don't know the intelligence with which caused Trump to make this decision. You know, was it pressure to protect Israel? Was it pressure because there's a big imminent threat? You guys can let me know what you think in the chat. We don't know. But it does, the reality of this decision puts these guys in these bases at risk. And there's a lot of them, look at that, right near Qatar and super close to Iran, much closer than the bases and the country of Israel, which this main dispute was between Iran and Israel, no? Now we are way more susceptible to attack as a result of this decision than Israel is. And Israel and Iran was the whole beginning point of this whole thing. That's just a reality.
A terror attack on the homeland here in the U.S. while the president was at the G7 summit in Canada now. And the U.S. obviously can't sort of stop with that defensive posture here in the U.S. as well, because that is another potential, a lone wolf attack or a sleeper cell that pops up.
That's right. And as you know, Tom, U.S. officials have been targeted for assassination by Iranian agents after the U.S. killed off the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps leader Qasem Soleimani in 2019. Several U.S. officials involved in that, including military and diplomatic leaders, were specifically targeted by Iran. Iran has the capability to unleash terrorism, unleash Hezbollah or other Shia militia groups as they reconstitute, not just against U.S. forces in the region, but also against American diplomatic facilities, against maybe American businesses, other American enterprises. And here in the homeland, obviously we have to be concerned about small teams, teams of assassins, teams, sleeper cells, teams of terrorists who have made their way into the country. They don't have to be Iranian. These could be teams that Iran has paid. They could be even criminal gangs, people making make money off of kind of terror for hire operations. And we've already seen several threats, terrorist attacks against Jewish organizations, against
Now that's a good point, everybody. We now have to be worried, okay, about sleeper cells. Now, who talked about this? Tom Homeland. Let's find Daddy T, as I like to call him. He was on Fox. Now, what's his response to this? Because now that we decided to go back on Iran, we have this threat from the millions of people.
Joining me now with that.
The millions of people that decided to come into this country illegally, which I talked about in the last video. We do not know how many of them are going to be in cahoots with the Iranian government, are now going to be recruited. That's maybe one of the reasons they're pushing so heavy on all these deportations to get people out of here, in case we do make a big military decision like this that could cause repercussions, that could motivate some of these sleeper cells to attack. But now we, as Americans, have to deal with, because Israel and Iran were going at this thing, we have to be at least on guard and vigilant about what might happen with some sleeper cell attack when we're at the mall or wherever we are. I'm not saying that you go around and you have this fear, but it's a logical thing. Millions of people came into the country illegally over the last 4 years before Trump got in power. We had 60,000 at a high point. 60,000 encounters in a day. Border encounters. Illegals trying to come across. And so now we have to deal with this problem because Israel and Iran went at it, and now, for whatever reason, we decided to bomb Iran. Maybe it was because of some information Trump got about the level with which Iran had reached with their nuclear thing. Or are we just doing Israel's bidding? Because we know that they have a lot of info on a lot of people, and they make a lot of moves happen. And the Israel lobby is very powerful in D.C. People in the chat, Bobby D says, Sean, whose side are you on? Does it sound like I'm on a side? Does it sound like I'm on a side? I'm just pointing out these different points to consider, not just blindly say, oh my God, the Democrats are so right. Oh my God, the Republicans are so right. This is the reality of what we have to deal with. And those are true statements about Israel's influence of us. They're also true statements about Iran being an evil country and we don't know what they're up to. But now we have to deal with sleeper cells. And to find out about what sleeper cells see, the sleeper cell situation, let's hear what Daddy Tom Homeland has to say about it. Pick a side. You can't have it both ways, Gregory. So you guys, I encourage you guys to not just blindly pick someone to follow and to go behind every single move of theirs. Trump has done amazing stuff for us. Trump has done amazing stuff for the whole country. We all know that, and we're very thankful for that. Doesn't mean you can't just be aware of maybe what caused this decision and think about it. Also, everybody, big announcement. My fiance, recent fiance, got engaged recently in Mongolia. She's in the chat, and she's trying to distract me while I'm making this video. I'm going to put her name in there. You guys can say, hey, Letizia, if you want. I spelled it in the chat. Let me say it correctly. Letizia. With my beautiful accent. You guys can Say hey, Letizia, in the chat. My fiance is watching on the video while she's on the other side of the world while I'm back in the U.S. She's trying to distract me. Now let's hear what Tom Homeland has to say.
1,272 nationals of Iran released in the country between OFO and the Border Patrol. And you compare that to the Trump administration, zero. Right, zero releases. And right now, because of President Trump's leadership, we have the most secure border in my lifetime, most secure border in the history of this nation. So we have a secure border. That was President Trump's big win on securing this nation. So we're not releasing people in this country. Special interest aliens aren't crossing that border undetected. But under Joe Biden, we had over 10 million people cross that border. But my biggest concern from day one, beyond the fentanyl, beyond the sex trafficking women and children, were the 2 million known gotaways. Over 2 million people crossed that border. We don't know who they are, where they came from, because they got away, because Border Patrol is so overwhelmed with the humanitarian crisis that Biden created that over 2 million people crossed the border and got away. That is my biggest concern, and that's what created the biggest national security vulnerability this country's ever seen.
And you have that on surveillance, seeing people get away. Do you have a sense of where they went?
No, the intelligence community under President Trump has been on this since day one. What gives me any comfort at all is that you don't have Christopher Wray there, you got Kash Patel there. You don't have Alejandro Mayorkas there anymore, you got Kristi Noem, and you certainly don't have Kamala Harris as a border czar. So President Trump brought a great team, been on this since day one. Do we know where every one of the 2 million are? No. We don't know who they all are. We don't know why they're here, where they came from. But we do know Border Patrol intelligence for the last 4 years, they found prayer mats south of the border. They found identification from people from Iran, Turkey, Uzbekistan, Syria, south of the border. So we know that some terrorists have crossed that border. We'd be a fool to think zero cross. The thing is, though, we got President Trump as a commander-in-chief who's put all resources on that. That's why President Trump from day one, ICE operations, despite what the left media says, he has been focused on national security threats and public safety threats. And between ICE and the Bureau, we've removed thousands of national security threats because of President Trump's leadership on this.
Yes, that's right. Tom, thank you very much. Tom Homeland joining us. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Hey,
That's why he's been going at all these people so intently that got away. Because we don't know. As soon as we make some military decision, is there going to be some inside the country thing going on? What do you guys think? That's a concern. That's why they've been so aggressive, thankfully, which is super, super exciting. Now let's hear what Fox News has to say about these
cases of GPS jamming in Qatar and other Gulf states. Iran is bombing Qatar. Let's bring in now Chief National Security Correspondent Jennifer Griffin at the Pentagon. You and I started talking about this about more than an hour ago now. Are we where your sources are telling you that we thought we'd be? Have we gone someplace that we're at least prepared to deal with?
Well, Harris, right now what we can tell from open source reporting on Twitter, you can see imagery of about what we're told from Israeli sources are 6 ballistic missiles that have been fired from Iran towards Qatar. As you know, as we discussed, the Al Udeid base, the largest U.S. Base in the Middle East, is about 40 miles from the capital of Qatar, from Doha. You can see the night skies over Doha right now, and there are explosions in the air. Some of those may be air defense missiles, Patriot missiles, trying to intercept those ballistic missiles. We have no indications of impact at this point. As you and I discussed before, there were satellite images from last week of Al Udeid, where the U.S. normally has a large number of transport planes, refueling planes, that those tarmacs had been emptied of those warplanes. But Al Udeid normally would have 10,000 U.S. troops based there. There had been warnings to U.S. embassy staff to shelter in place and at other embassies across Doha. We also now are learning that the airspace over UAE, the United Arab Emirates, where the United States military has another large military base, that airspace has been closed. And we also understand there could be an imminent threat to U.S. troops and personnel at bases in Iraq. That, if you remember, just 5 years ago, Iran fired ballistic missiles, dozens of them at U.S. troops in the wake of Qasem Soleimani's killing. So a lot of intelligence warnings. We brought it to you on air just a little while ago, and now it seems that those explosions are being heard over the capital of Qatar.
Well, and through your reporting, you readied us for, exactly.
And this isn't that intense of a response by Iran. Like, they knew it was going to get intercepted. They're attacking a military base. The U.S. had made a ton of, I imagine, preemptive actions or moves to be ready for the pushback. Some people want to get on here and post and be like, oh my God, they're going to get destroyed. Like, are you guys, I get so frustrated going on Twitter. The military is so intellectual, thought out, planned out. They have so much data and information that to think you have to be, they're going to be prepared for this stuff. They're going to be ready. Trump and all these people are not going to make such a big move and then just leave these bases susceptible. I just was at an air show yesterday seeing the details and the precision that just some of these military pilots went through and showcased, that it shows you the culture of the military. So I'm sure there's so many details that have been thought through to protect all of those bases around Iran before we decided to even do this bomb thing. Josh is in the chat. Josh, thank you so much for your super chat yesterday. I saw that this morning. That is such a blessing to see that you can see possibly why I'm questioning about where did this decision come from with Iran. And that you see how everybody's freaking out that I even ask a question. Thank you, Josh. Thank you. I'm back in the U.S., back on your guys' time zone finally. Bobby D says, you're on the wrong side of the fence, bro. Yes, it does. I mean, what side of the fence? Like, I'm just questioning, why did we make this decision? Why is Nikki Haley, Lindsey Graham, all of the neocon people, why are they praising this move? That we got involved in Iran after Israel and Iran were going back and forth. Do we know the information that Trump got that caused him to make this decision? No. I don't know, and I'm excited to see what happens. You voted for Trump, Bobby, you says, so we stand with him. He's made so many amazing decisions, but I've also seen some of the big money he's taken. You have, and I like to pay attention to who criticizes and who loves. Who criticizes and who loves these moves by Trump, right? Let's go to Candace Owens, okay? First of all, let's refresh this so I get my dark theme. Here we go. Not meaning to blind you guys. Okay. Where was it? Oh, this was... Oh my God, where is it? One of the... So now a question is this whole thing a planned thing to try to change the culture and the regime and the government in Iran? Because Trump posted on Truth Social says it's not politically correct to use the term regime change. First of all, when does Trump ever give a crap about political correctness? But if the current Iranian regime is unable to make Iran great again, why wouldn't there be a regime change? If I say the acronym that Trump put in there, I don't want to get flagged on YouTube. It sounds like another word. So, no, but my question is Trump proposing this? Was this the big reason behind this? Or is he just doing it because of Israel's pressure? Because they have information on so many people in the Israel lobby? Is it because there's a big problem in Iran? It sounds a lot like what George Bush said. Now, what I wanted to find from Candace Owens is... I can't find on here, but Nikki Haley, Lindsey Graham, all the neocons are so excited by this move, and that concerns me.
Exactly who would be still there, and you're furthering that now to let us know who is able to get out and who's expected to be there serving right now. You know, 6 missiles may not sound a lot to some people because they can do so much damage. And Iran reportedly has been running low on, we don't really exactly know what they have. Maybe they're not running that low. But with precision, 6 missiles are a lot. They haven't really been precision guided, though, going into Israel. They've been hitting all those residential targets. Not saying that they didn't want to kill civilians, but a little bit more haphazard. This seems more precision.
Well, I would say, Harris, the difference between Qatar and Israel is that it's just a few-minute flight for both short-range and medium-range
so both
ballistic
kinds.
or cruise missiles. You
Right.
also could be having, and my guess right now, based on the way the Iranians have been behaving in terms of targeting Israel, you may also have swarming drones that could overwhelm any air defense system. So obviously, the U.S. military, U.S. Central Command has been preparing for this moment. They have been setting up
Correct.
air defenses.
Al
Udeid would be one of the most protected bases that the U.S. has, but they also have long known that they are sitting ducks there, and so therefore, right now we have to just see if any of those ballistic missiles or cruise missiles got through.
So why would Iran target this base down here? Let's see if I can find the screenshot of. It's back on this video. Why would Iran attack this base down here when it's one of the most heavily protected ones? Is it just like a show to show their people that they're pissed about what the U.S. did, and so they're trying to put out something to please their people? Or is it an actual attempt to try to fight back against the U.S.? What's going on here? That's what I want to know.
What's happening inside that courtroom?
The U.S. had quite the plan to attack Iran. The diversion with the B-2 bombers, then going straight, heading east, going straight for those nuclear sites. Even though Iran has sort of telegraphed what they've done, possibly putting out statements to signal maybe tonight is over, U.S. forces around the world still have to be very, very cautious.
Well, no question. We can only hope that the strike that Richard accurately described so far is largely symbolic. If it really was only 6 missiles, if they were all intercepted and knocked down, if Iran is claiming that this was an equivalent response to the U.S. strikes on their nuclear facilities, then this may be a prelude to a road to negotiations starting up and getting arms control inspectors on the ground again. We won't know. But I think it's important also to make the point, these U.S. forces in the region, whether in Iraq and Syria, Bahrain, Kuwait, Al Udeid, they're there as a fighting combat force. They're not hostages. They're there to put Iran at risk and terrorist organizations at risk and to protect U.S. national security interests. So we shouldn't view them as, if we wanted to only protect U.S. military forces as a major national objective, we take them out of the Gulf. But they're pretty competent. They're tough. The Navy's at sea with 20,000 sailors and 2 carrier battle groups. So there's a big hammer out in the Gulf right now.
All right, Barry, we thank you for that. Stand by for us. I'm going to go back to Gabe Gutierrez, who's monitoring everything from the White House. Gabe, give us a sense of what's...
This guy is a tool, by the way. Gabe Gutierrez. Let's hear what he has to say.
Happening there in the building just behind you, the White House, and possibly inside the Situation Room.
Well, Tom, yes, the president is in the Situation Room right now. We understand from White House officials with his Secretary of Defense and the Chairman of Joint Chiefs of Staff, along with other national security officials. Now, we have not heard over the last few moments about the latest here, but certainly the president taking in what is happening, potentially speaking with partners in the region, trying to assess the full extent of the damage here, or if they've managed to escape any severe damage, kind of what happens next. You were mentioning with Richard and with General McCaffrey, if this was a largely symbolic attack, and again, we don't know the full extent of this yet, but if it were to have an attack with no injuries and no significant damage to any U.S. assets
Gabe,
in the region, Tom, I'll send it back to you.
Yeah, Gabe, thanks. We have some breaking news just coming in. Courtney Cuby at the Pentagon has some new reporting. Courtney, what can you tell our viewers?
Yeah, we are still working on confirmation about the possibility that the U.S., the base where U.S. personnel are housed at Al Udeid in Qatar, was in fact the subject of an attack by short and medium range missiles. We are still working through this, Tom. If you just give me a couple more minutes,
Yeah, no, I
come
get
back
it.
to me. Sorry about that.
No,
This
it's
is
okay.
developing
It's
very
okay.
quickly.
They told me to come over to you, but I appreciate
No,
it.
that was my fault.
We want to make sure. No, we want to make sure we're right. So keep working your sources. We appreciate that. We're not going to touch that reporting until we have it confirmed. Gabe, I'm going to go back to you. I didn't mean to cut you off there, but we are getting a lot of information, as you know, in real time, and we want to make sure the information we're bringing our viewers is absolutely correct. You were talking about the president monitoring this, and I also want to ask you, the vice president.
One big question that I want to propose to you guys before I show you an interesting clip about J.D. Vance and this whole regime change idea is, let me pause this thing.
But our view has been very clear.
I don't even remember what my question was going to be. Oh, was this a symbolic thing that Iran did, or do you guys think this was really a serious attack? Let me know in the chat, because I don't think this was a serious attack by then. They knew it was just going to get stopped. The U.S. is very prepared. It was just 9 missiles. I don't think it was that serious. But we do have... What do we have here? Let me put this out. We have this Truth Social post from Trump, right? That recently came out. It said, it's not politically correct to use the term regime change, but if the current Iranian regime is unable to make Iran great again, why wouldn't there be a regime change? They don't really have a great regime right now. They follow Islamic law, all that stuff, right? Now, remember before
Our view has been
that this was the argument by most conservatives out there that, whoa. We're not going to war with Iran. We're just bombing their nuclear sites. We're not bombing actual Iran. We're not trying to overthrow the government. Whoa. And this is what J.D. Vance said.
Been very clear that we don't want a regime change. We do not want to protract this or build this out any more than it's already been built out. We want to end their nuclear program, and then we want to talk to the Iranians about a long-term settlement here. We believe very strongly that there are 2 pathways. There's a pathway where Iran continues to fund terrorism, continues to try to build a nuclear program, attacks American troops. That's the bad pathway for Iran, and it will be met with overwhelming force. There's another pathway on the table here. There's a pathway where Iran integrates itself into the international community, stops funding terrorism, and stops trying to pursue a nuclear weapon. This is a reset. This is an opportunity for the Iranians to take the smart path. We certainly hope that they will. But our view has been very clear that we don't want a regime change.
Don't want a regime change, right? And now Trump publicly is saying, hey, maybe we want a regime change. Is that a game? He does a lot of big games in the press, which is always, so many times, it's so impressive what he does. But so many Republicans were like, which this is shocking to me. I thought like all MAGA, I was super MAGA. I love Trump. I love MAGA. But the way that so many of these messaging keeps coming in and the way that we just jump to Israel's defense, I don't understand. Everyone was like, oh, we shouldn't get involved. Now we do. But we don't know the information that possibly caused Trump to make this decision. That's what we would all love to know, right? But it's interesting. The whole thing in the public, which doesn't always mean it has to be honest in the public in a way. You can say in the public like Trump did, oh, we're going to have 2 weeks we're going to give Iran possibly. And then, bam! They dropped this big attack on their nuclear program. That could be the same with J.D. Vance.
We do not want to protract this or build this out any more than it's already been built out. We want to end their nuclear program. But our view has been very clear that we don't want a regime change.
They don't want a regime change, and now Trump is proposing it. Like, I really want to know what is causing us to do this thing. Is it really going to keep escalating and escalating? Let me know in the chat what you guys think. Let me go through some of the chats real quick. I think, because sometimes it's good messaging. Trump tries to trick people with the media stuff, say that we're going to do this, and they actually do this, because they're really working something else. But do you guys think that this is going to escalate? You think it's going to escalate up or de-escalate down. Put up or down in the chat. And let me go through some of these chats with you guys. For the 115 of you guys who are here, thank you for watching with me. Ooh, Marjorie Taylor Greene's going crazy. Because Trump said, ooh, this is insane. We know exactly where the so-called supreme leader is hiding. He is an easy target, but is safe there. We're not going to take him out, at least not for now. But we don't want missiles shot at civilians or American soldiers. Our patience is wearing thin. Thank you for your attention. We don't want regime change, but maybe it might not be that bad of an idea. Do you guys think it's going to escalate up or down? Because I only think it's going to escalate up. Like, if Trump's really saying, you better stop, and you guys better not attack, right? We don't want missiles shot at civilians or American soldiers. Well, if they start attacking more military bases, don't you think the U.S. is then going to respond to that and escalate this whole thing up? And then we have this big war, and then we protect Israel. That's what I see going on. Let me know. Up or down? Let's see. Let's see the chat real quick. And how great is it, people, that I finally have some good lighting and a good camera. Oh, it feels so good after so many videos you guys have watched of me from my little webcam in various rooms around the world. Too bad I wasn't on diplomatic missions in Iran. Thank God. Thank God I was not there. All right. Ram Diesel, element of surprise, tactical strategy. Thanks. Jennifer Hammond says the IDF softens the targets up and the U.S. came in with a final blow, most likely coordinated. Josh says that reminds me of it's not a Muslim ban, then Trump on Twitter. It's a Muslim ban. You know, because sometimes it feels like 4D chess in a way, the way that he says different stuff here, says different stuff there, gets the whole media distracted, and then boom. Right? Even the genius military decision, which I doubt was Trump's. For the love of God, realize that it's not Trump's decision on everything in his administration. I had to realize this too. Like, even just being at the air show yesterday and seeing the military and how precise and how well thought through even just their air show display was, I'm like, dang, there's so many big people in the military that think through things and plan things out and makes decisions. And yet, we on social media and us Trump supporters we watch a decision that was made and we're like, man, Trump's a genius. The military, that bomb, that other thing, Trump's a genius. Trump's a genius to send the B-2s this way and then send the other B-2s to Iran. Man, he's a genius. Like, it's not. Trump is not making that decision. Trump may make the final decision, but he's not coming up with that idea. That's generals, all these other things, and that's something I had not thought about. And I hope you guys think about that as well, because it's easy to go like, Trump mode. All right, let's show some of this. Then I want to play some of the we're going to play some of this background view of the missiles while I read some of this chat stuff. Let's see. Regime change, I think, has to do with the government, you guys, by the way. Jaspa Jones says it's all staged. I think it's kind of a coordinated planned thing to do certain things at certain times. That's what I think. Mofo Mike. None of us has access to what he said, she said. Actions, however, speak louder than words. Yeah, the Iran being chilled out, not having a nuclear program can definitely chill out the region and create some more stabilization there. That makes sense. And I'm excited to hear more from you guys, because I'm not saying I'm some expert on this at all. Everyone knows what Iran's #1 chant is. That's so true. Iran, they do not like the U.S. See what else some of you guys said in here. The state of Israel is... Oh, Tech says the state of Israel is not biblical Israel. The church is modern Israel. I'm going to have to agree with you on that one. The state of Israel is not the children of Israel that are listed in the Bible, which a lot of people like to get that misconstrued. Let's see what else some of you guys said before we keep hearing some more updates as we find out what the heck is going on with Iran and the U.S. The Trump is supposedly inside of what is the Fox News saying right here? Yeah, well, Fox News. Here we go. New York Times. What are they saying? So, what is this, Signoro? Let's read this bad boy. Okay. New York Times. Saudi Arabia has condemned in the strongest terms Iran's attack in Qatar, calling it a flagrant violation of international law. What do you guys expect them to? What do they expect them to do? Saudi Arabia has been cultivating closer ties with Iran, long a strategic rival over the past years, but the attack on Qatar, which the kingdom shares a border with, could test those warming relations. The U.S. Defense Department confirmed that Iran fired multiple short and medium-range missiles at Al Udeid Air Base in Qatar. I've flown through Qatar airport. Massive airport. At this time, there are no reports of U.S. casualties. We are monitoring the situation closely. There's the air base. It's the largest American military installation in the Middle East. Whoa! That makes a lot of sense then about this attack just being for show in order to impress and appease the Iranian people in a way. Right? Because if they attack the largest American military installation in the Middle East, that probably means they have the largest number of defenses around that military base, no? So they know that their missiles are probably not going to get intercepted. They're probably not going to get there. So, because they know they can't mess with the U.S. Iran cannot mess with the U.S. Like, our military is massive. Order of largest military bases. Of largest air forces. Here we go. Largest air forces in the world. No, come on. Here we go. No, I don't want it by country, man. Here we go. Number 1. This is why Iran cannot mess with us, okay? The U.S. Air Force is the number 1 air force in the world. Number 2 is not another country. It's the United States Navy's Air Force, or their. Then we have the Russian Air Force. Then we have the United States Army Aviation Branch. And supposedly then we have the Marine Corps. Total, we are massive, our Air Force. Just our Air Force. So Iran is not going to be able to mess with us. So was that attack, right? Where's my New York Times? Was this attack on the largest American military installation in the Middle East? Was it just for show? New updates. The all-clear sirens were sounded in Bahrain 15 minutes ago to announce the end of danger, according to several residents. We've been waiting to hear from President Trump about Iran's attack on the U.S. base in Qatar, but the president's first social media post since the strikes is a complaint about media skepticism of his statements about that Iran's nuclear sites were totally obliterated. Of course, Trump's. Let's see if we can find it on here. Trump, Truth Social. Can't find it. Can't find it. Let's see if there's any more updates, though. What is this weather BS, bro? Let's see what Fox has to say. So Trump admin issues chilling warning amid the sleeper cells.
All right, welcome back. Want to reset, talk about where we are now and where we might be going next when it comes to Operation Midnight Hammer and the situation in Iran. So taking a look once again to recap what we did over the weekend. The U.S. attacking 3 separate Iranian nuclear sites. Isfahan, where they got a bunch of underground tunnels with enriched uranium. Natanz, and then the big one at Fordow. That is where we used 12 different bunker busters, waiting for damage assessments from those. But the question is, what, if any, responses are going to be from the Iranians next? Keep in mind, we've got about 40,000 U.S. military personnel sprinkled throughout bases all within the Middle East, going from Turkey all the way down to Qatar and the UAE. Remember, back in 2020, it was Al Assad Air Base in Iraq, where the Iranians decided to shoot ballistic missiles in response to the strike against Soleimani. Then down here in Qatar, we've got Al Udeid Air Base. That is our biggest base in all of the Middle East. That's where CENTCOM also has some of their headquarters. The question also, what's going to happen here on U.S. soil? The potential threat of Iranian sleeper cells. We talked about the open border the last 4 years. Take a look at this data. CBP sources telling Fox News from 2021 to 2024 under the Biden administration, just over 1,500 Iranians were caught by Border Patrol crossing the southern border illegally. Of that, almost half of them, 729, were released into the U.S. That is 48%. That also does not account for the more than 2 million known gotaways who slipped across the southern border during that time. For more on this and the potential...
What? 700? Oh my God. I mean, that's not that massive amount, but if they know they came, that we just released them into the U.S., that's crazy. That's just like, that's so frustrating. But not as frustrating as not having as beautiful hair as this guy. Oh my God, this Fox News anchor looks like he was made in a lab. Excuse me, sir. I know why a lot of the ladies watch Fox News now. Because it's definitely not for Brian Kilmeade, right?
Potential threats to the homeland. Want to send it out to Mark Meredith, joining us live in D.C. this morning. Mark, good morning to you.
Bill, good morning to you. The FBI says it remains vigilant, and the Department of Homeland Security is warning there is a heightened threat given the developments in Iran. We're watching 2 potential types of attack here. The possibility, one, cyber threats to U.S. networks. The other, the possibility of sleeper cells targeting Americans here at home. Major cities, including New York, where you are, D.C. and Los Angeles, stepping up patrols near places of worship. NYPD also watching diplomatic sites around the country, around the city. And over the weekend, DHS put out a bulletin acknowledging the threat is real. DHS writing, multiple recent Homeland terrorist attacks have been motivated by anti-Semitic or anti-Israel sentiment, and the ongoing Israel-Iran conflict could contribute to U.S.-based individuals plotting additional attacks. Some lawmakers fear the sharp influx of migrants into the U.S. over the last few years may have allowed Iran to send sleeper cells into the U.S. undetected. And as Bill mentioned, Fox learning many Iranian nationals detected crossing into the U.S. during the Biden administration were allowed to stay and not kept in custody.
Fortunately, they do have a right to be concerned. As you said, Joe Biden had a wide open border policy for 4 years. We know that terrorists tried to enter our country. Iran has a long history of terrorizing America going back 46 years, to include here in the United States.
In February, the White House warned of this very possibility. The National Security Team says Iran has also directed proxy groups, including Hezbollah's Islamic Jihad organization, to embed sleeper cells. And, Bill, the threat extends beyond the obvious U.S. domestic targets. Military installations abroad, American diplomatic outposts all remain on high alert. Bill.
Yep, the issues at the border continue to echo with the situation right now. Mark Meredith, thank you. Good to see you.
Want to bring in Fran Townsend, former DHS advisor under President Bush. It's great to have you here. One of the things they did not mention is something that Iran is known to have some capabilities, but you could describe them, and that is the cyber capabilities. Could that hurt us here as well?
Sure. I mean, look, they've attacked U.S. critical infrastructure. They've attacked the financial institutions. J.P. Morgan suffered real damage. And so I think the private sector, too, has got to be on alert for retaliatory effects. I agree that we've got there's the potential for these sleeper cells that could be activated. But the FBI has the Joint Terrorism Task Forces, and the glory of those is you've got state and locals in there and DHS, so that they're all working the problem together. This is not a new concern, and so I imagine long before the bombing they were working to uncover sleeper cells. I do think the people the most at risk for a physical attack are our bases overseas and diplomatic institutions.
And when it comes to those concerns about potential sleeper cells,
That's a big point right there. You know, you can get concerned about these things going on, right? But we also have a bunch of intelligence agencies. We have a bunch of aspects of our government set up to keep us protected, to work against these threats, to have information before these threats happen. That, you know, we got to remember that too.
Diplomatic institutions.
And when it comes to those concerns about potential sleeper cells, when I was down at the border, I met a lot of Iranians, and most of them seemed like pretty nice guys. They come up to the cameras and they spoke English. They said they wanted to flee the regime. I think a lot of the concern has to do with the gotaways, right? More than 2 million over the last 4 years. Those are people we never saw on our cameras. Those are people Border Patrol never caught. Those are people who paid the coyotes extra to get away from law enforcement.
That's right.
What are your concerns about that population?
So that's exactly the focus of the Joint Terrorism Task Forces, because you've got state and locals there who are closer to the communities, who have sources in the communities and can feed into the federal system that can bring resources to bear. And so I take some comfort in the fact the other thing that the FBI brings with them is access to surveillance capability. So you can use the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act. This is really what it was intended for, and to gather intelligence to identify those cells.
Take us to the region, you know it.
You know, they got to use all this information to figure out, is there really going to be a problem? Now, what is the vibe in the White House? What is Senoro Trumperton thinking about what he's going to do? Well, let's hear from your guys' favorite news organization, the Clinton News Network.
About what's been going on in the White House, and what are you hearing?
Yeah, Anderson, I mean, when I just caught up with some White House officials, and one of them was telling me that essentially they had been expecting this. They knew that Iran was going to retaliate. One of them actually argued that they had a similar response, the Iranians, after the killing of Iranian commander Qasem Soleimani back in 2020. They say what they've seen so far from these initial assessments, it looks like a similar type of retaliation. And essentially they argued as well that their initial assessments, again, we know that the president is currently in the West Wing meeting with his national security team, but their initial assessments is that these missiles did not hit their intended targets, kind of echoing now what we have heard from the Qataris. And one thing I want to make clear as well, and this came up again in my conversations after we've seen this response from the Iranians, is that the president has made clear to his team here at the White House that he does not want further U.S. military action in the region as of this point. Of course, this could all be changing now as we're seeing this response, this retaliation from the Iranians. But prior to this attack, his posture was that he does not want to have more U.S. intervention in the Middle East. Again, we'll see if that changes now that we've seen this. But they argued that depending on how this goes, and seeing as of now that they do not believe that the Iranian missiles had hit their targets, they believe he may maintain that posture. I will say, though, they of course said that the president is reserving the right to escalate U.S. military involvement if necessary, but that's his current posture at the moment, Anderson.
So, what do you guys think is going to happen if they retaliate? Again. Because that current retaliation, yeah, we're going to get into it. We're going to hear what our favorite buddy, just kidding, not our favorite, has to say. But what do you guys think is going to happen if they retaliate? Are we going to escalate this even farther? I don't really expect them to just lay down and do nothing. Tech says, listen, I don't want war, but peace is never a debate. With our human nature, it's a show of force. Jasper Jones says, either way, American taxpayers will pay somehow. Facts. Oh, I want to get into this juicy stuff with Signore Charlie Kirk. Gotta love Charlie, huh? Oh, follows me along with 180,000 people he follows. Let's see where Charlie. So Charlie is saying, after the regime change comments, right? He's saying a bottom-up revolution rises from the will of the people. A top-down regime change is engineered by elites and the intel community. One is organic, the other is orchestrated, forced. The line is very thin and must proceed extremely carefully before we know it, we could be in a situation like Libya. President Trump is talking about an organic uprising. America cannot get involved in a forceful decapitation effort in Persia. Interesting choice of words, Persia. So he doesn't want a top-down regime change. Charlie doesn't, right? But Trump is now floating that idea, at least on social media, you know? I don't understand. Now, regarding all this stuff, how does it affect Papa Z?
Дорогі українці, українки, сьогодні багато.
Oh man, I thought it was in English. Bro, I don't speak Ukrainian. Zelensky, get out of here, bro. Okay, let's find another one. I'm trying to find. Okay. CNN doesn't post nothing.
For joining us. And thank you for joining us here on CBS News 24/7. I'm Meg Oliver. We continue to follow breaking news this afternoon from the Middle East. Iran has launched a strike in response to the U.S. attacks this weekend on Iran's nuclear facilities. U.S. officials have confirmed Iran launched a strike at the U.S. base in Qatar. You are seeing video from Doha, which is near the base. It has thousands of troops and is the largest U.S. base in the Middle East. So far, no casualties have been reported. A U.S. official tells CBS News they are not aware of attacks on any other U.S. bases. CBS News Middle East reporter Courtney Keeley is on set with me, and we are just getting reports from from Margaret Brennan, who was saying that both Kuwait and the United Arab Emirates have both closed airspace as a precaution. What else do we know?
We know that Bahrain has also closed the airspace. There is a threat of continued attacks. This one episode seems to be done, and there were no casualties, there were no impact. The Qataris did say, according to the Prime Minister's spokesman, that they thwarted the attacks. Iran tried to call them, use some very verbose big language, but that's really not the situation right now. They were shot out of the sky. I was and have been in touch with an expat in Doha, an American who's lived there for 9 years. The Air Force base, the base actually, CENTCOM headquarters, forward base, is about 17 miles outside of Doha proper. They heard thuds, they had some shock waves, but not anything on the level of a massive airstrike. So Iran did that. We're hearing these rumors that Iran somehow tipped off Qatar, but I'm not going to go there with you. That really isn't the point. It happened. The question is, will more happen?
Well,
will
that
it
is
go
the
to
big
Qatar?
question.
Yeah.
Will more happen? Will we see more happen today?
Right, and there is a threat that there could be more. So that's what we're looking at right now. We are standing by for that information. But so far, it hasn't been disruptive to people living in Doha or in any way terrorizing in terms of the impact. It was expected because the U.S. base in Qatar is very large, and it would be a target.
Is there any way of knowing of where they would be looking to strike next?
Well, we know that the U.S. ordered these evacuations before Israel even started these airstrikes more than 10 days ago. So we know it's a non-essential personnel. Families were all taken out of these bases.
Wow.
That there's really just military there. The question is, will Iran use their navy to shut down the Strait of Hormuz? They can disrupt. They can try to strike, but will they be effective is a big question mark. They have been effective in Israel, and we have to remember that that's still a target. Israel has seen these ballistic missiles get through even overnight. So it's multi-pronged now, which is really meant to distract, and Israel's still in the line of fire as well.
All right, Courtney, stay with us. We're going to bring in CBS News intelligence and national security reporter Olivia Gazas, who joins us now from the State Department. And
so it makes sense that they would evacuate families, other things from those bases long time ago, because you just never know how it's going to go down. Maybe because they know they might be protecting Israel because they're such a big ally. The military is really, 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 really impressive. Really impressive. How much stuff they think through, that they were doing this so long ago. Which, that's really cool information. It really makes you respect how detailed the military is. And if you guys can, I highly suggest you go to some air show, some military thing, because it really wakes you up. It did me. The level of detail and precision that goes on in the military. I was aware of it, but to see it firsthand again was amazing.
Olivia, what do we know about the status of diplomatic relations between the U.S. and Iran right now?
Well, those are non-existent, but what we are hearing, Margaret Brennan, from a diplomatic source, is getting a signal that this may be it for now. Again, we are still in sort of a position of high alert, and we do not know that this is the extent of Iranian activity. But what is meaningful is that so far, we have seen only about 10 short and medium-range missiles fired in the direction of a well-fortified military installation in Qatar with what seems like advance notice. We do not know yet, again, the parameters of that. But we do know that the State Department put American citizens in Qatar on alert, urging them to shelter in place. That alert came at 7:44 a.m. Eastern time. So at least a suggestion that there could be incoming in that area. If it remains the case that there are no casualties, which is what we are told so far, if it is the case that there is mild or limited damage, which, again, we need time to ascertain, if proxies in the region don't activate, and chiefly we're concerned about the Houthis, over which the Iranians have the least control, and if there are no meaningful asymmetric attacks here in the homeland, in the cyber domain, as you've been discussing, then we can assume that the Iranians are ready again to engage in diplomatic talks. We haven't heard that yet. We haven't heard that explicitly. We are asking whether any diplomatic overtures have been offered, but the mild nature of this response, such as it is so far, suggests that they will have done their piece, done what they needed to do in order to save face, and not try to engage the United States in an escalatory spiral upwards. So, again, standing by to see what the diplomatic notes have been from Iran in the aftermath of this and ahead of it. But right now, we are told that this may be it for now, by a diplomatic source knowledgeable about the situation.
Yeah, we're going to see if there's any more diplomatic moves. Anyway, right now it looks like there's nothing going on. Trump's in the Situation Room dealing with other things. They were already ready for the attack, but it doesn't look like much things are going on. So I'm going to head out. Glad I could give you guys some updates. It's Sean Daniel here, and I will see you in the next one.